With Frozen 2 being released in late 2019, there were plenty of questions that the animated film had that weren't exactly answered fully, as well as details that might have been overlooked. One interesting aspect of plot development in the film is that of the relationship between Anna and Kristoff. In the first film, they were both mutually friends, and by the end of the first film, after Han's evil plans were foiled, they were still that of a friendship, nothing more than that. At the time, Disney didn't want the pair to end up being a couple because it would have completely changed the dynamics of the film, being arguably that of a female empowerment concept, as Elsa and Anna didn't necessarily need the help of a man to save the day from the said villain, and end up as a stereotypical Disney princess needing help from a man, but by the second film, more of a traditional sort of relationship in relation to Disney films applied to Anna and Kristoff. From friends to lovers and even marriage. Elsa, still being the main focus of the second film, could not have possibly have any sort of love interest, because then the dynamic would be altered even more. Because the dynamic was slightly altered with Anna being paired up with Kristoff. As mentioned, Elsa still had to be on her own, with her own needs and wants for her life to keep the Frozen name being as it was, related to the first groundbreaking film in terms of plot and story originality. The confrontation of King Runad and the Northuldra leader is very reminiscent of Scandinavians with their first encounters of indigenous peoples of the faraway regions of the respective countries that make up modern Scandinavia. An interesting theory is that the Northuldra people is a reference to the Sami people, which are an indigenous group of people living all throughout northern Scandinavia. It's to the extent that these people are recognized as a distinct separate group in the countries of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. These people's ancestors were among the first human beings to have migrated into Scandinavia and developed a distinct and separate culture from other migratory groups to later venture into the region when humans began to populate and settle Europe. The Sami were historically settled in what's now considered the most distant, northerly and harsh regions of Europe, and for thousands of years remained out of most European affairs, but when modern European nations began to expand their national borders, the Sami were often separated and divided, later forced to pledge allegiance to these new nations and not their own traditional tribal factions. Only in recent times have the Sami been recognized as being unique, in these countries with Sami populations beginning to understand and respect the indigenous, traditional, distinct Sami culture. After the betrayal of the trust of the Arendelle royalty to the Northuldra people, they began to fight, and this fighting angered the spirits of the forest so much that they decided to separate the forest from the rest of the neighboring kingdoms and lands, Arendelle being one of them. Everyone, regardless of faction or feelings inside the forest, were locked inside. And as per Matthias' assumption, they had been in prison for 34 years, which is more than a generation, as Ryder confirms that everyone had been in prison there for so long that some of the younger people had been born during the imprisonment and had never actually seen the real sky above them, just the mist that enveloped the entire forest, himself included. Despite what Runad's selfish and even racist actions and accusations, the spirits punished all indiscriminately. But due to Elsa and Anna breaking the bonds on the forest and destroying the dam, Matthias and Yelena held arms and leave the forest as friends and allies, thus showing that people can make amends and not hold grudges of prior decisions made by other people. In the first film, a critical theme is that due to Elsa being the eldest daughter, she became Queen of Arendelle by law of succession. But because her own powers and desire for greater freedom, she bitterly detests being the ruler of the kingdom. Anna even remarked to Elsa that she'd be up for the crown, and Elsa, without hesitation, offers it to her. But due to Anna and her situation, cannot take it. With the plot of the second film and Elsa still not wanting to be queen and not wearing the crown, abdicates and relinquishes the crown to Anna. Elsa can finally live the life that she desires and Anna can be queen, which she's naturally good at. Into the Unknown was the main song of the second film, and though it was very good and original and enjoyed praise from audiences and critics, in terms of worldwide appeal and award nominations and awards won, it's not in the same tier as Let It Go, as now Let It Go is considered to have been the best Disney song of the entire 2010s. There were plenty of other songs also sung during the film, and some did mention that they were far more than normal for a Disney film, as commentators mentioned that it would be possible for songs to sing for musicals and that Disney might have had this in mind when coming up with the songs for the film. Agnar and Iduna were revealed to have died on the way to Ahtohallan, a mystical land of folklore from the Northuldra and possibly other neighboring kingdoms' own mythology as well, a land beyond the northern ocean and almost impossible to reach, as only Elsa was able to enter the inner sanctum of Ahtohallan due to the mysterious aspect of this lost land from importance mentioned in the movie, and from the movie taking inspiration from Scandinavian folklore. It's sometimes believed that the glacier of Ahtohallan might be a reference to Thule, a legendary land of Scandinavian folklore. Due to the significance of the glacier, it's doubtful that regular Arendellians or Northuldrans would be able to enter such a sacred area, which is why no one else was seen at or in the glacier, and there were no other pieces of evidence showing that anyone else had ever really been there in modern times. When Hanimaran speaks to Elsa about the fifth spirit, and through the story Elsa actually becomes the modern incarnation of the fifth spirit, it's actually hinted at the voice that brought Elsa to Ahtohallan is the spirit of Iduna. Due to the fact that Iduna is Northuldran, and spiritually attuned, her soul can remain and guide Elsa to the glacier before she can finally rest for all eternity, which she did. But Agnar was saved by Iduna, which was actually shown to have wind powers, so the theory that powers are passed from generation to generation is plausible, but not the exact said power. The essence of wind in Frozen 2 is Gale, as named by Anna, and Elsa became the spirit of ice, as the horse was considered the essence of water, while the fire lizard was considered the essence of flame, and the rock golems being considered the essence of earth. Due to the Wuhan virus epidemic of 2019 and 2020, when Frozen 2 was released on Disney DVD, people bought the Disney DVD as normal, as fans of the film. But just a few months later, in March of 2020, Disney actually decided to release the film on the Disney Plus streaming service, which most actually had obtained for free, and at the time, due to Disney promoting the service to potential customers for long-term renewal, as they would eventually pay later on. The people that had bought the DVD felt cheated that they had bought the DVD of the film when it was essentially made available for viewing enjoyment for free later on. Although nothing could be done about it, most commentators mentioned that it was just poor timing from consumers.